You know, we've had this contest here at InfoWars. CNN is ISIS because of Kathy Griffin holding up the severed head of Donald Trump. Well, you know, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, they're the same thing, aren't they? And we have Al-Qaeda propagandist has been employed by CNN to make a prize-winning Syrian documentary. What a surprise that the network that is so closely associated with the military-industrial complex and the CIA would use an Al-Qaeda propagandist to film their award-winning documentary. Yet another controversy for the embattled network, this is coming from Mint Press, has come to light in the making of its award-winning Undercover in Syria documentary. The documentary revolves around CNN reporter Clarissa Ward's quote-unquote undercover trip to extremist-held portions of Aleppo that pushed for a Western intervention in Syria last year, and it places the blame for the city's suffering on the Russian, Syrian, and Iranian governments. After the documentary aired, Ward was invited by then U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, that was Obama's ambassador, to testify on her experiences in rebel-held Aleppo. However, CNN hired a known member of Al-Qaeda. His name is Bilal Abdul Karim, in order to obtain the on-the-ground footage that they use in the documentary and to assist the CNN reporter in getting access to rebel territories. This is something that other journalists had been killed for trying to do, but she was able to get into these areas because she knew the Al-Qaeda people who were running them and used this to produce her documentary and to produce the narrative that people like John McCain and the CIA and Obama want you to see.
Was moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
The agenda that pushes regime change and what will follow is chaos rather than coming after ISIS. This is ISIS that is working with CNN to do this documentary. So the network has recently sought to distance itself from its key source on the ground after the documentary started picking up awards. He noticed this and he tweeted it out. He said on Twitter, he said, a piece that I filmed with CNN won Overseas Press Club and Peabody Awards, but CNN, quote unquote, forgot to mention me. But I'm smiling. Yeah, you don't forget to mention people who contribute to a movie unless they happen to be Al-Qaeda contributors and you're CNN, and then you don't want people to know that. CNN, as they point out, likely didn't forget him, but instead intentionally chose to exclude his name once it gained fame, as he is a well-known English-language propagandist for Jabhat al-Nusra, otherwise known as the al-Nusra Front, which is the Syrian branch of Al-Qaeda, which is the same as ISIS, folks. I mean, we got all these different names, but you have to understand what it is. While he denied being affiliated with Al-Qaeda, he said in a Facebook video, he says, I am not, nor have I ever been, nor do I need to be a part of Al-Qaeda. I don't have any need for that. Nevertheless, his privileged access to al-Nusra members, being able to get the CNN reporter into places where other reporters are killed, and territory suggests this just the opposite. They said the video where he denies ties to Al-Qaeda, he also states that the reason he has not faced the same dangers as other journalists in the al-Nusra territory, the territory that is held by Al-Qaeda, is because of mutual respect between him and Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda's host, U.S. jihadist Bilal Abdul Karim, put him on their Ramadan show. He's just been praised by al-Nusra's religious leader as our media man just last month, even though his denial of ties to the groups are coming out there. So Al-Qaeda says he's our media man, and CNN uses him for their documentary.
Joining me now to discuss the legal basis for America's latest undeclared war are David Corn, the Washington Bureau Chief for Mother Jones and an MSNBC political analyst, and Jonathan Turley, law professor at George Washington University. Professor Turley, what is your reading of the legal basis for the action that's been taken in Syria?
Well, there's certainly not a constitutional basis. This is yet another undeclared war from a president who says that he doesn't have to consult, let alone get approval to go to war. We are launching attacks against a foreign country. We are hitting targets within Syria. It violates international law, and it violates the United States Constitution. We've come into this strange parallel universe where we live in perpetual war.
Your agency was saying, quote, the Salafists, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Al-Qaeda in Iraq are the major forces driving the insurgency in Syria. In 2012, the US was helping coordinate arms transfers to those same groups. Why did you not stop that?
It was a decision. I think it was a willful decision.
A willful decision to go support an insurgency that had Salafists, Al-Qaeda, and
a
Muslim
willful
Brotherhood.
decision to do what they're doing, which you have to really ask the president, what is it that he actually is doing?
And that was Zy Hirsch's Military on Military. He points out about military resistance to our government's policies in terms of arming and equipping ISIS. He says that resistance dates back to the summer of 2013. It comes from Defense Intelligence Agency, Joint Chiefs of Staff, then General Martin Dempsey, all talked about how the fall of the Assad regime would lead to chaos and potentially to serious takeover by jihadis. They say they had an all-source appraisal. That means that it was coming from signals intelligence, from satellite intelligence, from human intelligence, pointing out that there was a covert U.S. program to arm and support the moderate rebels fighting Assad. It had been co-opted by Turkey. It had morphed into an across-the-board technical arms and logistical program for all of the opposition, including al-Nusra and the Islamic State, ISIS. The so-called moderates, he says, had evaporated, and the Free Syrian Army was nothing but a rump group stationed at an air base in Turkey. He said the assessment was bleak. There was no viable moderate opposition to Assad, and the U.S. was arming extremists.